Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Weidman. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 171. Dennis Shakuratov here with Kasper Rosalowski. It's the 26th of September. It's a Wednesday here in Melbourne. We're all rugged up as usual, and we're happy to be back here with a new episode of Submission Radio, leading into a very small, very unknown little event called UFC 229 that is happening apparently next week, Cass.
Never heard of it, but I mean, we are flying there apparently. I got to tell you, I've spoken to a lot of casual fans, right? I speak to a whole bunch of people. I speak to the people of Melbourne on a daily basis, and a lot of them, when UFC 229 gets brought up, they're like, "Oh, it's happening? When's it happening? Who's Conor fighting? Who's fighting on that card?" I'm shocked. My own family members don't even know about the fight card or the fact that we're going in there. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Fight week, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, the event isn't going to necessarily do 2 million pay-per-view buys or anything like that, but I'm just a little bit shocked at the reaction. But yeah, we're here. We're talking about it, so we're doing our part. If it does 2 million, you know, best believe Submission Radio is going to be getting a little cut of it, right?
Yeah, that's right. We've been going around neighborhoods, handing out flyers, putting them in people's letterboxes with one of those little trolleys.
Yeah.
And little activewear pants. But I was going to say,
the megaphone as well, like in The Simpsons. We've got like a task force going around the neighborhoods yelling out, UFC 229, buy it. So doing our part.
We'll take care of it personally. But just quickly for everybody out there, no episode of Submission Radio last week, unfortunately. Some pretty serious health concerns on my family's part. A grandfather actually fell over, broke his hip, ended up in hospital, and then got a blood infection, sepsis blood infection. So he's 98 and he had to get a new hip replaced, and then but he can't speak English, and there's a whole bunch of other problems. So basically 5-6 hour shifts in the hospital every day, and just sort of stopping very, very recently as of yesterday. So fingers crossed everything works out and that doesn't continue. But we thank you so much for your messages. I saw there was a lot of support on social media. It definitely made me feel really good, Cass. So I really love our listeners, our fans, and our friends out there who take some time and say, hey, I hope you guys are all right. Thank you so much, guys. I really, really appreciate it. And Cass, before we jump into the program, we mentioned UFC 229, the big press conference between Conor McGregor and Khabib. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it. So before we jump into the guests and tell you guys who these guests are, let me just quickly get your thoughts. What did you think of it? Because it was interesting. I mean, a lot of people liked it. A lot of people didn't. Did you draw anything away from it? And what did you think of the whole thing?
I mean, I don't know why. For some reason, I expected Conor McGregor to be a little bit more tame. I don't know why. I instantly felt stupid when he came out, and it was like the RDA edition Conor McGregor, the Jose Aldo edition of Conor McGregor, and he just absolutely went for it. It's almost like whatever we missed out on in the last couple of years since his last fought, it all kind of came pouring out, and he did not hold back. He did his research, he did his homework. I mean, it just goes to show how important it is for Conor McGregor to try and get into his opponent's head, try and get every little bit of an advantage. Whether he does or doesn't kind of is irrelevant, but he's definitely going to try, and of course try and sell his whiskey. But I just found it fascinating how at the start Khabib Nurmagomedov wasn't making any eye contact with Conor McGregor. You could see that he was trying not to. He wasn't looking at him. Whenever he answered questions, he would look forward. And then pretty soon, the pieces sort of started falling apart. The composure, I wouldn't say the composure fell apart, but he started looking at Conor McGregor. He was facing him. He was pointing to him. He was getting, pretty frustrated. And again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, these are signs that Khabib's going to lose or Conor was in his head or anything like that. But I was thinking about what word to use to describe Khabib in that press conference. I don't want to say bothered. I would say he was not the most comfortable. That's the way I'll phrase it. Mm-hmm. And there was an interesting moment when they were going back and forth about the languages. Khabib got him with a pretty good zinger, and I guess props to Chael Sonnen because he said it in the past with Conor McGregor. He's like, hey, if you're so tough or whatever, something about Irish, why do you speak English? Kind of saying, well, hey, the English kind of got you guys. Why do you speak their language? Conor McGregor sort of went back at him, I think, in Irish. Khabib got really frustrated, saying, I can speak to you in English, in Russian, in Turkish, and he was pretty pissed off. Conor McGregor was standing at that point, and it was Conor who kind of smiled and kind of laughed and diffused the tension. which I found interesting. I thought, why would you do that? If he's getting pissed off and you're getting in his head, why are you the one to diffuse the tension? But yeah, some pretty wild moments where Conor McGregor was going after Khabib's father, and Khabib just kind of sat there and took it. I found it thoroughly entertaining. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, nah, definitely. I agree with you. I think near the end there, I think he definitely got under Khabib's skin. It was interesting. There was this camera crew following Khabib and his team around, and they showed before the press conference even started, he ran out and grabbed his belt. And to me, I'm like, all right. So he's already looking out for little Conor McGregor antics before they even happen. And for me, that's already something that he'll be thinking about during fight week and thinking, okay, I won't go here or I won't do that. Or I won't leave my belt here because Conor McGregor's going to try and take it. So a part of him does care. It's just, will that affect him during the fight? That's going to be very interesting to see. For me, I mean, Conor McGregor for me sometimes is very effective. Other times is a bit overboard. To me, it was a little bit cringy. I think when Conor McGregor was throwing shade at Khabib and Khabib wasn't saying anything, to me, I'm like, all right, Khabib is winning here. Like, he's not reacting to anything, and Conor McGregor's trying really, really hard to do something. And for me, it was a little bit like his performances in the bad Floyd Mayweather press conferences where he sort of went overboard, and I was like, I don't know. But then when he did his research and he threw out some really, really good zingers and he wasn't like jumping up and down and going overboard when he was saying them, that for me was really good. And in the end, I agree with you. I think he kind of got into Khabib's head. So I think that if the fans are in there, it would be a completely different press conference. So I'm very curious to see what happens during fight week.
People would have died.
Got a lot of supporters.
People would have died. Yeah, more dollars would have been thrown. Bottles of Proper 12. Someone would.
Yeah.
You think Monster Energy cans to the head? You know what I also noticed? Just sorry to cut in, but like I think these must be very frustrating for Khabib and a lot of Conor's past opponents. Not only because Conor's so, I guess, fluent in English and he's a wordsmith, but it's kind of the story of all his opponents. Khabib, RDA, Aldo, English isn't their first language, and so to try and have comebacks is you need to work a lot harder. It reminds me of me arguing with my dad, who has, he's Polish, I'm Polish. I can run circles around him when it comes to the English language, and he can't do that. He's not as quick, so Khabib kind of has to work harder. And while he's working to think of the words to say, Conor's just continuing cutting him down, interrupting. And I think that interruption can be very frustrating as well if you're Khabib. Again, I'm not saying it's going to affect the fight any which way, but you can see Conor's trying.
It's going to be interesting because I think we'll be at the press conference. Obviously, we're flying over there. So, Khabib's definitely... And it was, the media, some could argue the media was a little bit too pro Conor McGregor when they're asking some of the questions and stuff like that. But also, Khabib wasn't really giving much in the way of answers when media were asking him questions. So I'm curious to see how he responds to some of our questions during UFC 229 fight week, because that's going to be a very tense moment indeed. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be primarily Conor McGregor fans there. Even though Khabib's got a lot of fans, I still think there'll be a heavy Irish presence at this card. And the thing about Irish fans is they definitely set the scene. Now, I've got a Ukrainian heritage, and I know a lot about Russia. And you're Polish, obviously, Cass. And, we've got some crazy soccer hooligans over there and a lot of stuff going on over there as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this dynamic plays out between the fans, how they affect the press conferences, what happens during the media days. Khabib's going to have a huge crew. McGregor's going to have a huge crew. It's going to be very, very interesting. So very excited to see what happens there. But to get you guys even more amped and pumped for what's going to be happening next week, we have some sexy guests on the show this week, Cass.
Yeah, that's right. We've got Robin Black coming up in just a second. He's going to be talking about the UFC 229 presser as well. The man loves the psychology aspect of any fight, so we got to get his thoughts on that whole thing, who got in whose head, who potentially won the presser. He's also going to be doing a sort of early preview of UFC 229, not the whole fight card, just the main fight, Khabib versus Conor McGregor. I believe he's going to be in Vegas as well, so if we're lucky enough to run into him, if our schedules permit, we may even get some more content from Robin Black. Leave some comments in the comment section below. Let us know what you guys want to see, who you want us to interview. Obviously, anyone who will be available will certainly be trying, but let us know what you guys want. Obviously, let us know what you think of this episode as well. We've also got Luke Rockhold jumping on the program. He's going to be talking about this fight that he's got coming up at UFC 230 against Chris Weidman. Pretty huge rematch for the middleweight division. And, of course, the man trains with Khabib as well, so you got to get his thoughts on the fight and preview that a little bit. Also, Coach Mike Winkeljohn will be jumping on the program, returning after, I think it's been a little while, so it's good to have him back on. A lot to talk about. we will not be talking about the Mike Perry, Donald Cerrone beef, but we'll be talking about a whole bunch of other things. There's obviously Jon Jones, his USADA suspension, Holly Holm, Michelle Waterson, UFC 229, so a whole bunch of other things. It's going to be a sexy show. I'm pumped and I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting. I mean, it's just an exciting time for us right now. We're getting amped up and ready to jump over to Las Vegas, fly all the way from Melbourne, which is always going to be exciting. We have a sexy crew coming down. We have a sexy location where we're going to be staying to make sure we bring you guys the best videos. But more importantly, Casper, we have some very, 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 very sexy sponsors. Now, first sponsor I want to talk about is, and I'm bringing this up to the camera right now, is Musashi. I want you guys to look at this protein bar because this has been the bane of my existence in the sense that I have not been able to stop eating this bad boy. It's called the Deluxe High Protein Peanut Crunch. Peanut butter layered 21 grams of protein bar right here. And for people out there wondering, all right, well, you're going to be a fat boy if you're eating this all the time. Listen to this. 2.1 grams of sugar. Beautiful. 7.2 grams of carbs. This thing, I'll tell you what, Cass, this thing, it tastes better than a Snickers. I'm not even kidding you. I'm telling you right now, forget the whole have a Snickers. You know, you're acting crazy. Have a Snickers. Forget that. Have a Musashi Deluxe High Protein. It's going to sort you out. If Conor McGregor's getting out of control, I'm going up to him, giving him one of these. I'm going, have one of these. You're a little bit much. You're a little bit extra right now. Yeah. You're not yourself right now. You're going to throw a bottle at one of our colleagues by accident in media, right? Take one of these. And can you imagine him throwing a proper 12 around at people? That's going to really cause some damage. So I'm going to have these in my back pocket. I'm going to hand them over to Dana White. I'm going to say, hey, if you want to calm the guy down, have this now. But seriously,
if he throws a Musashi bar, at least people can catch it in their mouths. Like, oh, hey, thanks, Conor. Yeah. They all lived happily ever after.
Well, what I was going to say is, and this is not just because the guys are sponsoring us, this is my favorite protein bar out there on the market. It is absolutely unbelievable. So, of course, we're talking about Musashi. They're a big sponsor of a number of fighters. Robert Whittaker, a bunch of local fighters and businesses across Australia. And they've gone behind Submission Radio. They've given us the opportunity to fly up to UFC 229. Our content is brought to you by them. And I just want to get you guys onto musashi.com.au right now. There's some fantastic new promotions with Robert Whittaker with the front and center. And there's nothing that makes me feel better than when we see one of our own guys representing such a great brand, especially a local brand, right, Cass, here in Australia. And I just want to quickly remind everybody, because I kind of struggle with this. And Cass, you've got a background in personal training, so you don't struggle with this as much. I know when you're on your diet, it's scientific. It's Robin Black-like. But for me, I don't know what I'm doing half of the time. Am I coming? Am I going? Am I eating this? Am I not? And eventually, temptation does get the best of me. But on the website right now, musashi.com.au, there's a BMI/protein calculator. You put in your age, put in your height, you put in your exercise, gender, weight, training, bang, and you calculate sort of the protein calculator and where you can get started. So I think that's really helped me. I've been able to suss stuff out. I've been able to drop about 4 or 5 kilograms just using Musashi in the last couple of weeks. It's been fantastic. I put on a lot of muscle. I have to recommend you guys go to musashi.com.au and also check out the fact that they will be getting us over to UFC 229. What a fantastic company there to work with. They'll be, before every single piece of content, you guys will get to see a little Musashi logo. We are very, very excited to be working with a brand that actually helps dudes lose weight, put muscle on, and supports local business. So that's musashi.com.au. And that is, again, if you don't get a chance, the pre-peanut crunch, the protein bar right here. This is 21 grams of protein, 2.7 grams of sugar. 2.1 grams of sugar.
Even better. Wow.
Yeah.
They just improved it. New and improved formula.
Yeah, and just quickly, I mean, fantastic protein drinks that give you an option to get your protein in without having massive amounts of sugar being put into your body every single time. Fantastic pre-workout supplements and fantastic big tubs of protein you can just take, put it in your workplace, take it in the car with you. I know Casper smuggles it across country like he's smuggling cocaine. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
in the old prison wallet.
In the old prison wallet. He's on being on Border Patrol a number of times due to his protein addiction. So musashi.com.au.
Yeah. Just quickly, they're not the only guys sponsoring us for UFC 229. There's, of course, as we mentioned, the previous episode, another champion stepping into the octagon, a UFC 229 is going to be Air Asia. It is the world's best low-cost airline. The world's, the undisputed. And they have been awarded so by Skytrax Awards for 10 years running. Undisputed, undefeated. That's a long streak. They're the official...
They're the Demetrius Johnson of airlines before he lost, Reese.
Before he lost. Got to make that clear. Before he lost.
Before, not now.
Official partner of the UFC. That's another bonus. If they were a weight class, I would say super heavyweight. 130 destinations. That's why. That's a lot of destinations. A lot of places, a lot of options, a lot of countries you can fly to. If you want to do some jiu-jitsu in Japan, you can. If you want to do some Muay Thai in Thailand, kick it old school, do some Wing Chun in China. Asia is without a doubt the heaven for martial arts and MMA fans. You can go to One Championship. Air Asia connects you to over 130 destinations across Asia, so you can check out all of them. And the good thing is, you mentioned local, they support rising stars such as Jimmy Crute, who helped get all the way from Australia. They helped him to America, where he won his fight on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. And now he's going to be on UFC Adelaide, fighting the UFC, fighting the big leagues. Air Asia to thank for that. And we got to thank them as well, because they'll be powering all UFC 229 content. So before Robin Black hangs up on us, because he's like, guys, I've been waiting 1,000 years while you eat bars and talk about Air Asia. A massive, massive, massive thank you to Air Asia for doing that and powering us. And powering the content of UFC 229.
That's right. Hashtag Dare to Dream. We dare to Dreamcast with UFC 229 around the corner. Just quickly, guys, before we go to Robin Black, who's about to hang up the phone, I just want to bring up the fact that during fight week, a lot of people make the massive mistake of not subscribing to the Submission Radio YouTube channel, because they're used to getting all their content through their iTunes, TuneIn, a whole bunch of providers, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever available. And they miss out on a bunch of exclusive content. So if you're in front of a computer right now, or you're on your phone, and I see you sitting there in the train, or I see you there in the office, and I see you there, driving home, and you're at the red light, I encourage you to jump on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Submission Radio AU and subscribe right now. Do it now. Forget about it. It's free. It's easy. It's done. And then enjoy your slice of UFC 229 pie. We have a whole bunch of content that we're planning on releasing. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. And there's just so many ideas and concepts that we have. We don't even know ourselves how many videos will be popping out. It's going to really depend on the fact that not only do we have set interviews and set media days and set press conferences to go to and give you guys and put up on the YouTube, but also a whole bunch of exclusives that just pop up literally a minute before we get them. So jump on the YouTube channel, subscribe, and make sure you don't get FOMO. Don't jump on the channel a week or two later after UFC 229 and see all the goods there and be like, why didn't I check it out then? And then have to listen to pre-fight interviews after the fights have happened, and have to rewatch the event, and then it's just a mess. Who's got time for that? No one. Go on the YouTube channel, subscribe right now. I'm talking to you right now. You're in the doctor's office. You want to make sure you're okay before you put all your money on Conor McGregor next week, and that's okay. Subscribe to the YouTube channel right now. Avoid all FOMO. Avoid all fear of missing out. That's youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. Of course, we're on Instagram. Follow us on there at Submission Radio. Of course, check us out at Submission Radio on Twitter. And like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/Submission Radio AU, where there will be stuff as well. Instagram, we like to put up photos. And I think we might be streaming some videos, Cass, just from us having fun in the hotel and in Las Vegas and just hanging out with media members and sort of behind the scenes stuff. That will primarily be through Twitter video stories. So, through Instagram video stories. So, there's a whole bunch of stuff for you guys to follow. You're a little bit like an old man with 25 medications that he's got to take every morning. Make sure you take it now and avoid UFC 229 content death next weekend. But guys, without further ado, we mentioned our next guest. He's a real trooper hanging on the phone. We look forward to seeing him next week. I think he will be at UFC 229. But before that even happens, he joins us here on the program. And Casper, I believe you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. The next guest is one of our favorites to chat to. You know him from his excellent analysis, his high energy style, and of course, the 1 minute breakdown, which we absolutely love over here at Submission Radio. He's here to help preview Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor, UFC 229. Robin Black, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
Hey, good. Yeah, I like you guys. I always like you guys. And I'm going to see you in Vegas, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's maybe some sneaky plans of us catching up together, and who knows, maybe some content as well. So much to talk about. Let's talk about UFC 229, obviously this big fight. Before we even talk about the main event, I know you love the psychological aspect of things, so do we. What did you make of the press conference that went down between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov? Did you think that someone got a mental edge? You know, a lot of people have different theories. Some say Conor McGregor won that one defiantly. Others say that Khabib didn't really sell anything and nothing really affected him. How did you feel about the press conference? Did you think he got to Khabib at all?
Well, I think I'm always curious about what it means and what we can learn from it and what we can learn from it for the greater understanding of what we're seeing and as it applies to fights. But I think it's really important to know that even if somebody had a mental breakdown and urinated in their pants and threw feces all over the stage and got arrested, it wouldn't necessarily mean anything on fight night.
Sure.
And I think that's really important to remember. It is very cool for us, for the fans, for people who are connected, to have some connection to a team, to feel our team. And it can affect on the night. It can. But it can also not. Or these things are also not binary. It isn't like either someone won and someone lost, or someone was in someone's head and someone wasn't. It's all shades of gray, and it's all very, very, wide range of possibilities. But so when we take that away and we look at it, it's like, what is happening and what's happening in any meaningful way? And first of all, there's two things that we'll look at Conor because he's the instigator and he's the guy who seems to have a purpose, not because we think he's more important or anything like that. But he goes in, he has two purposes, and he clearly sets out with these. One is to make us engaged and talk and sell tickets and make money. And the other one is to attempt to create some type of meaningful change in thought or mindset or emotion of his opponent that may affect him on fight. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are the two things. The one, he's fucking 100%. He bats $1 million every time. We notice it, we quote it, we make websites dedicated to what are his funniest or more interesting things. We buy things because of it. We talk about it. He murders that. The other one is harder to decipher, and it's harder to compare. But for the most part, we often say everyone has been affected in one way or the other by the mental chips that he puts into the game. And we'll often say, with the exceptions of Nate Diaz and Floyd Mayweather. Mm-hmm. However, if you got a chance to talk to Nate Diaz and Floyd Mayweather one day long into the future when they have no desire, because what people would say in interviews, as you guys know, is often what is best helpful to them, to their career, to the fight coming up, to money, all types of things. But if they were going to give you the truth, they might even say, to be honest with you, as Nate and Floyd Mayweather, as experts in the field themselves, that they might have said, normally we're affected to a 2, but with this crazy motherfucker, we were affected to a 4. Do you know what I mean? So it's all very varied to say Nate wasn't affected or Eddie Alvarez was affected. It is never like that. What it is all of these shades of percentage and degrees, and everything matters, but in the right circumstance, none of it matters at all.
Yeah.
What I'm saying by that is the way that Jose Aldo behaved in the cage mattered. He was put to sleep 13 seconds later. The way Eddie Alvarez behaved in the cage mattered. He's a guy who never hesitated, who never did the wrong things, who never walked into a cage saying, I will do a lot of this and very little of that, and did the opposite. Dustin Poirier, it mattered, and he said it mattered. Chad Mendes talked about feeling fatigued. We don't know whether he felt it mattered. So it matters in that sense. The question is how much of it affects you on fight night. And that's something that outside of being a fan or using the instead of being able to answer how much it matter, what we usually do is answer a heuristic of the question. The question is, how much did this mental game matter? We don't have the answer to that. It's too complicated. So we find a heuristic of a simpler question, which is, who do we like more? And if you like Conor, you show footage of the brief seconds where Khabib seemed engaged, and you say, see, he got into his head. And if you like Khabib, you show the long moments of Khabib having no effect, and you show that to support your evidence. The truth is, there's some effect. We just don't know how much it is, and we don't know how to measure it, and we don't know how it will carry over on fight night. And this in no way undermines the beauty of it, or the interest of it, or how interesting it is to us, the fans. I'm just trying to truth you a little bit here.
Yeah.
Another aspect that I thought was really interesting, it was the research that he did.
Yeah.
Again, you might assess Khabib and say, he's cold, He is mentally strong. You know, fucking guy fought a bear when he was 8 years old. You know what I'm saying? So we can't just use the surface things. We must go to those places that some people would say is over the line, or some people would say is out of bounds, or is unsportsmanlike. That's where you must go if you have any hopes of affecting this guy. You must go to the places that other people don't go. Talk about his father, question his allegiance to his country and to his people, try to undermine and use the relationship between Chechens and Dagestanis that dates back many, many generations. Even Conor McGregor, who I think we've seen plenty of evidence that he lives sort of a humanist view of the world, talking about how the key to winning this may be, you know, he's pointing to the heavens and saying, well, Jesus Christ will help me with this. Sorry, I'm just walking over here for a second.
That's all right.
And he's saying Jesus Christ will be, as Jesus Christ is my whatever, and saying that that's a key to it. Conor's never referenced Jesus Christ or anybody else before except to say gods recognize gods. He said that knowing that his opponent is a very strong Muslim. He also offered him alcohol. Like, all of this was calculated. All of this was calculated, and that makes it fascinating. Did it have any effect? None of us are qualified to say that. But what we do is we cheer for the person we like. So we say Conor did nothing, or we say Conor got into his head. The truth is, we don't know. But what we do know is that guy came in with a ton of research, a ton of preparation, a ton of knowledge, and an a seemingly unsportsmanlike, according to what we believe, approach. And he was fearless in the way that he tried to use it.
A couple of things. I think when it comes to sportsmanship, I think the boundaries are very much further when it comes to MMA, because at the end of the day, it's not a ball sport. It's two people fighting. What you say, I think, is nothing compared to what you're going to do potentially to someone in the cage. And I think it also highlighted just how important it is for Conor to get a mental edge over his opponent. Whether he does or doesn't is irrelevant, but it's important for him to at least try, and that's what he's doing. It's no fluke, it's no coincidence, it's not just to sell a fight. He's doing this to get every advantage possible. But looking at the fight itself, Robin, I'm curious, because here's the interesting thing. Both Conor and Khabib, they like to press forward aggressively in order to force their opponents against the cage. We saw Conor McGregor do that to Chad Mendes, who, you know, even though he is the wrestler and forward pressure could be used against guys like Conor, like strikers, he did that there. He loves to get his opponents against the cage. Khabib likes to do the same thing because he wants that clinch. Who do you think will be able to press forward and land and sort of implement their game plan more effectively and back the other guy up against the fence?
I think if you're Conor McGregor, you're spending a lot more time backing up, which he did against Nate in the second fight, which he did obviously in the moments of Aldo. I think you're spending a lot more time backing up. Because to press forward, now when he did it against Mendes, there and so I do a one-man show, and I did one in Dublin, and John Kavanagh was my guest, and he talked about how moments of fights happen, and he talked about how in the moment of Chad Mendes, when whatever was left, 35 seconds was left in a fight, and he says as they got back to their feet, there is an unspoken semi-agreement that will happen between two fighters, where they'll both take a step back. Maybe they'll glance up at the clock, maybe they won't. But on some level, they'll be like, we both came in here, we fought really hard, we're both really tired. And maybe it was less, maybe it was 15, 18, 20 seconds, I don't know. We're both really tired, so we're going to separate here. We're going to take a deep breath. Maybe we'll throw a flurry at the end, and the round will end. And that's what is done, and that's what is naturally done, and that's what both of us want to naturally do, and we'll both do it. Conor got up, and as John described it at the time, he said, in a fight, there's often a moment where there's a guy who's tired and a guy who's pretending he's not tired. In other words, he's also tired and not pretending he's not tired. Mm-hmm. And there's a guy who's scared and a guy who's pretending he's not scared. And he said in that moment, as Chad backs up, the natural thing would be Conor would back up, and instead he pushed forward and he selected the exact weapon, a stabbing toe to the body, to also further sap you. And then he was able to press. And when he presses against the cage, he doesn't press straight forward. He comes forward and curves slightly, forcing you out to the side. So he throws that left hand as you circle off of the cage. So it is a very different scenario, but it's only in occasions that he uses it. In this case, much more likely, a lot of McGregor's activity is backing up, and if Khabib doesn't move forward, it is only meeting where he was and waiting till Khabib moves forward and backs up again. So I think in this fight, McGregor backs up. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's what he'll want to do. I think it's what he'll do. I think also a really fascinating part for me is when you look at the way that Tony Ferguson wanted to fight Khabib and face the wrestling, I think it is a better approach than most other people have taken. I've got a little thing. We're doing something on YouTube here today. You know, this looks like a bunch of circles because it is. But basically, we often say, you got to close the distance, and then you wrestle a guy, and then you take him down. And back in the day, we would say, I'm striking, and you want me on the ground, so it'll come down to the wrestling, as if that's one thing. What in actual fact will happen is you must close the distance. Then when you close the distance, you must get a hold of me. Then once you get a hold of me, you must initiate some sequence of events that will try to take me off my feet. And then this is the most important spot. Then I will offer resistance. Back in the day, you took me down. It was like you shot a single, you got a single, and I pulled guard. Or you shot a double, you got a double, and now I pulled guard. Today, instead, we fight to get back up. We don't surrender the situation. So you close the distance, you get a grip, you initiate some game of putting the guy to the ground, and then here we resist hard and don't surrender the position. And then either the guy takes the position or you surrender it, usually both. Those two things are interchangeable based on your resistance and his attempt. And then you end up in a position like Khabib does, where he beats the shit out of you until he destroys you for the rest of the round. There's many steps. This is the step where he takes over. The step where you push away. In the old days, you'd pull guard, or the old days, you'd wrap it up, or the old days, you'd fight from the bottom. Today, you either move to 4 points, or you offer your back, or you spit your stance, or you go to a post, or whatever. There's a lot of things today that we do instead to get back to our feet, and that's where Khabib controls you, and that's where Khabib destroys you. And Tony's approach, which was told to me at length by Eddie Bravo going into it, there's a breakdown that I did, and it's Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. I did it. If you put my name in those, you'll see it. It's about 5 minutes of my old style of breakdown. Fight never happened, but we looked at it at length. And Eddie Bravo's approach was, instead of turning away or fleeing that position where we resist giving it up, we'll accept the guard position, or we'll accept and fight head on from the ground. I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if Conor McGregor can do that. I don't know if he will do that. I don't know if he will consider it. But since everybody who tries to resist the position ends up getting dominated because Khabib will destroy you when you resist the position, maybe it's better to face it head on. To me, that's the most fascinating aspect of this entire fight. At some point, you get held. And here's the thing. Again, Khabib closes the distance. He gets a hold of you. He initiates some game to take you to the ground. You resist. He mangles you. If he doesn't get a hold of you, he goes back and he tries it again. And if he doesn't, he goes back and he tries it again. And if he gets a hold of you, but then you break, he goes back, close the distance, get a hold of you. If he gets a hold of you, closes the distance, gets a hold of you, begins, you break, he goes back again and again and again and again and again and again forever. If at some point in the process of that, Conor knocks him out, well, that's over. If Conor does not do that, then it happens again and again and again and again. And inevitably, he will get you down and he will initiate his game of dominating you for having the gall to move away and resist his attempts to manage you. To me, that's the most fascinating part of this fight. And to me, that's an inevitability, is you face that position and do you face it head on like Tony was planning to do, or do you move away from it like everyone else has failed trying to do? And I think that's the most interesting part of this fight. And to me, that's the most interesting part of fighting Khabib in the first place. If Conor lands an enormous hand and hurts him or knocks him out, well, this is all going to be irrelevant. But I don't know that you can just assume that. So instead, you're expecting to see this, and nobody's unbeatable, and nobody's unstoppable. And nobody, no matter how good you are at managing the distance and landing your left hand, you can be beaten in that case. And no matter how good you are at controlling and dominating on the ground, there is a way to beat you. And those are the parts that matter to me. And those are the parts that I'm fascinated and dying to see. And we don't have answers. And answers are not found in the heuristic of replacing who's going to be able to implement their thing, which is an unanswerable question, with who do you like more? And then you say it, and then you find supportive things to argue it. That's what we do in the world. That's what they'll do on UFC on Fox. That's what they do on CNN. That's what they do on an NFL broadcast. That's what we do in television that is harmful to our society because people just fucking argue on Twitter about it. The reality is we don't know. And the reality is, holy fuck, I can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll tell you what, Robin Black, if you were my science teacher and you had diagrams like that, I think I'd do a lot better in school. It's absolutely fascinating. You put it very, 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 very clearly. And we're excited to see you during Fight Week because I feel like we'll be picking your brain throughout Fight Week to see what you think. Guys, make sure to check out Robin Black, obviously at Robin Black MMA on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel, Robin Black MMA. And just quickly, Robin, as we let you go, just a couple of things people can look forward to. It's a huge fight. Your breakdowns are legendary. We know you're going to be there during Fight Week. We're very excited to meet you. But as a fan, what can I expect on the old YouTube channel? Because we know you have a lot of really, really good content.
Yeah, tomorrow morning or probably around the same time as this is up, I've got 2 hours of analysis, a little deeper version. And in fact, I think I may have explained it even more concisely with you guys now because I've been playing with this.
Excellent. No need to put it out. We'll just use this video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I looked at the mechanics of Conor McGregor's. To me, honestly, I'm at a point where I've faced frustration and friction because I know that when I talk to the highest level coaches or fighters or analyze the work that they're doing, it's this incredibly beautiful, complex thing that we have done in the world of analysis and broadcasting. We have been incredibly disrespectful, assuming our audience can't understand it. And I felt a lot of friction and a lot of pressure, a lot of stress to try to find answers to that. And so my game now is to dismiss our old mechanisms, predicting fights, striker versus grappler, stylistic matchup. We've been using the same verbiage since 1998, and the world changed a million times, and our understanding has changed, and fighting itself has changed. And there's a reality happening in fighting, and then there's the complete nonsense that is being presented every day in every broadcast in the fight world. And my job is to find a way to take that truth and explain it in a way that can be understood. And that's what I'm going to do every single day on my YouTube channel and Instagram at Robin Black MMA and Twitter at Robin Black MMA. That's my job now. That's my job as I see it for the next 5 years. And not everybody wants that, and not everybody's going to be a fan of that. A lot of people like things the way they are, and a lot of people don't like new ideas and new verbiage, no matter how accurate it might be. And that's too bad, because that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I mean, we love it, and we know a lot of our listeners love it as well. And big fans of the 1 minute breakdown. That's good. I think the 1 minute breakdown is universally loved. So we can't wait to see you for UFC 229 in Vegas, Robin. It's going to be great, and I'll definitely chat some more fighting. Thank you so much for jumping on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys, and we will enjoy the hostilities, and we'll try to enjoy some of that fucking proper 12 when we're down there.
Yeah, if we can afford it, yeah. Thanks, Robin.
The first one's on me.
Excellent, we'll definitely afford it.
See you guys there.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, it's been a little while since we've had our next guest on the show. He has trained to work with some of the biggest names in MMA, one half of the great Jackson Winkeljohn gym. It is a pleasure to welcome Coach Mike Winkeljohn back to the program. Mike, thank you so much for coming back on. How are you today?
Oh, thanks for having me back, guys. I guess I was that bad. You took a while to get me back, but I'll try to do better this time.
You never returned our phone calls. No, it was our fault, But now that we have you back on the program, we have to start things off by getting your reaction to the superstars, the Jackson Wink superstars, Holly Holm and Michelle Waterson, releasing a little dance video for the Level Up Dance Challenge. I have to find out, Coach, have you seen their video, the dance video, and what is the rating, the official Coach Wink dance rating for that one?
I saw it, and, I'm the old guy, so I always want them to wear more clothing, but I know they put a lot of heart into that thing, and I thought they did well. You know, they move real well, and they're able to pull that off in a good way. And I was excited to see him do it, and I know a lot of fans liked it as well.
I mean, we know how much effect you've had on their fighting style. Were there any sneaky Coach Wing dance moves that were never really accredited in that video? We feel like you'd be a smooth man on the dance floor.
Behind the scenes, I did choreograph quite a bit. I had to show them how to do it myself, of course, because I am the old white guy that has no rhythm. But I have absolutely nothing to do with what those girls do. They come up with all that on their own. There's no doubt.
Between you and Greg, who would you say is the better dancer? Who cuts a rug better?
Oh, Greg, for sure. You know, when I dance, I basically just start shadow boxing, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I really think it's cool, and I've got a lot of compliments on it. But Greg can do the robot. He's got some moves. Greg's got some moves.
I feel like you come up with your best combinations for your fighters while you dance.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the secret to being one of the best MMA trainers and the boxing trainers and kickboxing trainers in the world. Now, let's get onto fighting. Sorry, go on, Coach.
Well, I was going to tell you, they posted me dancing before, doing my shadow boxing at some events, and it's funny because all the coaches, all the other UFC coaches, they always come up to me and go, you know what? That's exactly what I do when I'm dancing. So I just decided to throw it out there, let everybody know that's what coaches do.
Oh, well. I'll tell you what. I mean, I always see our trainers do it as well from our gym. Now, let's get onto fighting before you hang up with us, because this is what we have been waiting to talk to you on the program about. Let's talk about Holly Holm first. We saw she got her win over Megan Anderson, but since then, we haven't really seen when the return's going to happen, who might be next. So we have to ask, Coach, what's going on with Holly, and is there a person in mind for a possible return fight soon?
You know what? I want Holly back. You know, she just had knee surgery. She's been out taking care of a lot of issues outside the cage that had been haunting her ever since she had fought Ronda Rousey. But with that being said, her mind's in the right place, and her injury's healing from her surgery. And I want to see her fight for a title. You know, what I want to see is I really wanted to fight Nunes again. Nunes is going to fight Cyborg, so I'm hoping the UFC will want to have some kind of interim title because they don't know what's going to happen with that fight. But that's where Holly's at. I think that's where she needs to be is the title shot.
Okay, so with this interim title, you'd want Holly in there for the interim title next. And which division are we talking? 135?
135, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's her true weight, 135. That 145 that's a big weight. You know, Megan is just a giant. That was one large, tall, long-reached girl, and she was very talented.
I know. Sorry to cut in there, Dennis. I know obviously she got the win over Megan, not quite as successful against Cyborg. Did those two fights kind of put you off against having Holly Holmes at 145 in the future? Do you think she'd ever fight at 145 again, or do you think 135 is sort of where her career belongs now?
Oh, I think she'll fight at 145 again. Just depending on the right fight. You know, I've always wanted a rematch with Cyborg. And Holly, because look, here's the deal: nobody's ever done it at Cyborg before. Holly gave a run for her money. On the judges' scorecards. To the judges, it was even after 4. It came down to that last round. And just Holly did get cracked hard in that fight. And I know Holly can beat Cyborg. We just got to fix a couple things, not go back to the well on a couple things that she does too often. And Cyborg is as great as she is, but I think she's beatable.
Holly Holm, she's a bit of a treasure for the MMA fans. I mean, she's really interesting to watch. She's had some really good fights. But when we were researching this interview, I noticed she's 36. And I know, she's always mentioned there's going to be a point where she sort of ends fighting and looks at other challenges. How much longer do you think MMA fans will get this sort of privilege of watching Holly fight? How many more years do you think we can get out of her before she sort of does decide to move on to other things?
A couple more years.
Okay.
I think you have a couple more years for sure. You know what? She's real passionate about it. She's very healthy with her lifestyle and her diet. So she's not as old in the cage as her age. And she really hasn't been hit that often in her whole career. As of recent, she got hit more toward the end fighting the bigger girls. But really she has not taken that much damage. She's been sticking and moving her whole boxing career. And so there's not a lot of damage on Holly, and she is real passionate about it still. So for sure we'll get a couple more years out of her.
Just before we move on, a fun little question here, Coach. Anybody reach out to you guys about possibly going over to the WWE and having a bit of a WrestleMania feud with Ronda Rousey, I know would draw a lot of eyes and big ratings. Would you guys be open to it?
Oh, that's always a possibility. And there's contractual obligations that Holly has, of course, the UFC. But, down the road when she's done fighting, that's definitely a possibility. Rematch Ronda again.
I want to see you as the evil manager. I want to see you as the evil manager that's out with her to the ring, coach. I want to see an outfit. I want to see a run-in. I want to see you as a part of the storyline.
Hey, I'll tell you what. They pay more money than I make as a coach for UFC, so I would love to act stupid and make some money for them.
I think that'd be awesome. It'd fit into the storyline. I'm going to ask, obviously, about Michelle Waterson. She's going to be fighting next week, UFC 229. We know she's opened her new gym. How is the training work sort of going into this fight with Felice, with her sort of having her new gym? Did you work with her much in this camp?
Oh, I work with her every single day, a couple times a day. Her gym is just she has like a little place in her backyard. I'm not sure why everybody's talking about a new gym. Because she has a daughter, so after she picks up her kid from school, she likes to stay home with her daughter and her husband. Her husband's one of her coaches. He is a professional boxer, and they work a little bit in their backyard. So that's her gym that everybody's talking about. But she's in the gym with us every single day. She came to 2 of my classes today and worked with me privately today. So every day we've been working, and she's well prepared for this fight. She's looking very good, actually.
It's interesting because Waterson, always really, really popular, but it kind of looks like she's getting onto the beginning of a pretty big run right now. What do you think we'll see from her at UFC 229? And sort of in general, do you believe we'll see her kind of continue her streak in the division? Because she had a couple of road bumps, but now she's back on a winning streak, and a lot of people believe there's a big future there in the division for her.
Well, I think Michelle's, one of the fastest, if not the fastest, in her division. She definitely can kick better than anybody out there. What people haven't seen yet is her wrestling skills. They've got even better. She can definitely defend submissions, and she started showing the ground and pound in her last fight as well. Couple little tweaks on the ground. We're fixing some things. Coach Joey Villasenor has been working with her on a lot of different be in the right positions, right time on the ground, and we're excited to show the world what she can do down there. At the same time, stand-up wise, like I said, she's faster than anybody out there. It's just a matter of making things happen at the right time in her fight, and I think she's got a great future in this still.
Of course, and obviously she's on a really great fight card, one that's going to get a lot of attention at UFC 229. We'd be stupid not to ask you, as one of the most notable coaches in MMA, what you think about this fight between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor. If you had to, how would you see it going?
If I had to see it going, I like Khabib quite a bit, so there's no doubt about it. I think he's very, very capable of finishing Conor on the ground, but he has been hit before, but you can see there are some openings as he enters from that range. So Conor's got that puncher's chance to hit him, and if Khabib doesn't finish him in round 1, they're going to be standing up at the beginning of round 2. So it's kind of a scary one there to make a call on. I'm not sure what the odds are on it, but all I can say is it's going to be a good fight. I really would have a hard time putting any money on the fight because it's kind of a toss-up as to what's going to happen.
I feel like the odd makers are just waiting for you to give a prediction so they can switch around the odds. But I was going to say, for a man that shadow boxes when he dances... Well, if that's the case,
I would lie because then
Smart.
Yeah, we should have discussed this before the interview started, Coach. But for a man that shadow boxes when he dances, you're striking really, really well. How good of a striker is Conor McGregor in your books? And do you think he's one of the best strikers in the UFC?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What he's got is he's got the relaxation in the eyes. If punching at length is his thing, he can let someone punch at him and just barely slip off and then throw his left over the top of it. He's got those skills, especially when has a longer reach on the fighters he's fighting. That's where he's really, I think, shown the best skills. A little harder time with a Diaz that had the long reach. Got kind of stumped there a little bit, I believe, but who knows what was going on in his head at the moment. But I definitely think he's easily one of the best strikers ever in MMA.
What would you say is sort of maybe underrated when it comes to his striking? Is there anything that maybe is overlooked? Because a lot of people talk about that power, and you mentioned sort of his reflexes. Do you think there's anything that's overlooked, perhaps?
Overlooked. I don't know. They talk so highly about it. I'm not sure if anybody's overlooked anything.
Yeah. But I guess like layman's like us can look at Conor McGregor. I'm talking about Dennis and myself and be like, oh, he's a good striker. But someone like you can sort of see the subtleties of what it is that makes him a good striker, and maybe realize things that people like us don't necessarily realize, or he does things that maybe you would realize how difficult it actually is to do compared to us.
Well, look at his stance. His stance is a big product of how he strikes. When he does really well in his fights, when he doesn't get stumped a little bit, like I said with Diaz, if you look at his stance affords him the ability to move in and out slightly quickly. He has an athletic stance that a lot of guys, I believe, in MMA are missing, and probably should emulate a little bit. I think that's something that does so much for me. It's not just his stance, but the small little steps that go with that. That afford him the ability to move in quickly, move out of range just a little bit, so he can just barely fade away from the punch and move back in, as well as angle changes. But his stance, I think, is a big part of what people need to start looking at that affords him the ability to do so many things.
It's definitely fascinating. Just quickly, we were spending some time with GSP here in Australia. He was doing a bit of a speaking tour, and he was talking to us a little bit about Khabib and Conor, and he's kind of looking at possibly maybe fighting the winner of that fight. I know GSP has ties to Jackson Wink, and you probably kind of know him a lot better than we do. If you did see a Khabib and GSP fight, who would you pick in a fight like that?
A Khabib and GSP? You know what? I think that's a tough one. I think GSP in that one. I think so highly of George's intelligence. He's so smart as far as understanding the other fighter. He's highly intelligent when it comes to fighting in the cage. And because he's got some good defense as well as on his offense, on his wrestling, I think he can shut down Khabib a little bit, and his jab, I think, would hit Khabib quite often. Just some basics. GSP has gotten so good at a few things that I think he's smart enough to not go crazy and just keep trying to pick Khabib apart. That's what I think. And I could be wrong. I think Khabib can bundle up anybody. He's so good at trapping arms. He's a talented, but there's something in there that I think I'd go with GSP on that one.
I wouldn't necessarily blame you there. Of course, we're going to talk about the big news, and that's Jon Jones. 15-month suspension from USADA. It was sort of a long time where we didn't really have any clarity. MMA World sort of blew up when they saw the results after the arbitration finally went through. What did you make of the deal that he got from USADA?
Well, I think they should have made the deal a long time ago. When you actually look deep and you forget about all the things that people said, and you actually look at the ruling the UFC had and what their words were that they used, and when they say the amount of the substance was so small that there was absolutely no way that could have been used as a performance enhancer. When you actually look at the words that they said, I'm surprised he had as long of a suspension as he had. But people have a tendency just to go, oh, he just did steroids, and they did jump on it. Before that it was a Cialis. And that's steroids. So I have to defend Jon on that. There's no doubt something got in there somehow, but it's scary now. Jon's even scared to eat out. He's scared to eat away. He says, gosh, what if that waiter doesn't like me, if the busboy doesn't like me, Who knows what's going to happen out there. And it is kind of scary that way if you think about it.
You said you were surprised at the length of the suspension. Do you think it should have been a shorter one? If so, how long do you think would have been the more appropriate number?
I would. That's just a tough one, but shorter the better. When you look again what they actually found, I was surprised. I thought for sure they're going to say that they didn't show up again in another test, and I don't know the details. But when I read the words that they said, how there was absolutely no way that could be used as a performance enhancement type of situation, I thought, well, why is he even suspended? It doesn't make sense to me, but. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they didn't read everything, and I haven't read all the reports. But that's what I'd seen were those words coming out of USADA.
Now we were all kind of shocked, Coach, to see Dana White not announce that Jon Jones will be headlining UFC 230 this week. I guess we were all expecting that news to come out after he was cleared to fight. From your perspective, is he still in the running to main event that Madison Square Garden card?
I wouldn't put money on him being there for the Madison Square Garden card. You know what? Jon is so smart that he wants to come back and do it right. He's not in any rush to jump in there and do it ill prepared. He wants to make sure he trains for the opponent once he finds out what that opponent is, and do his homework. That's what people don't understand about Jon Jones is he does his homework. Hours and hours and hours of studying tape, and hours and hours and hours hitting these unpredictable things that he uses in the fight, but they're very predictable for him because he's put so much time into practicing. Jon is a student and a master of the game at reading his opponent. He knows what his opponents are going to do before they do it because he studies them. So I would think Jon would want to find out who that is and have a good training camp for it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very interesting one. I mean, it's interesting because there's the fan perception around Jon right now, Coach, is a mixed one. People are happy to see him come back. But then when the news of this deal that he got came out, and the fact that apparently he sort of gave information to other fighters, at the moment, fans don't know sort of what to think, and there's a lot of negativity about that. What do you think about some of that negativity around Jon Jones, and I guess the confusion around that issue?
Well, I think it'll play out. I don't believe he turned in any other fighter. Same thing that his manager said. If he gave information, he probably gave information on himself. So if you hate Jon Jones, it doesn't matter what I tell you. You're going to continue hating Jon Jones. If you like Jon Jones, you're going to like Jon Jones. That's what I've noticed about the social media world. Basically, there's a bunch of idiots out there that can't think for themselves and just jump on bandwagons and believe what others say. And they're not willing to dig and look for the real information. People have a tendency. I saw it somewhere on the internet, so it must be true.
Because I was going to say, have you had a chance to speak to Jon Jones about any of that at all? Because what I'm getting from you is that Jon Jones essentially hasn't snitched on anyone, or anyone part of the team or anything like that.
Oh, I definitely I can definitely believe Jon Jones did not snitch on anybody on our team or anybody else. That's just not in Jon's character. I don't know where that even came from. And I have not talked about Jon, but I do not believe that.
Well, I was going to ask you, Coach, what do you make of Brock Lesnar's return and getting this shot against DC? Because I guess DC, that was the opponent that a lot of people sort of wanted Jon Jones to fight against. Obviously, they got this rivalry. DC is the champ right now. And also, he may be retiring soon. What do you make of the fact that that fight may be held up by the fact that Brock Lesnar is sort of coming back out of nowhere to get this heavyweight title shot?
Well, it's a tough one. You know what? Here's the deal with Daniel. He's talented. I think he beats Brock Lesnar. There's no doubt about it. I think at heavyweight he's more dangerous than he was at light heavyweight. Since he's not having to cut, he's back to just being even more explosive. And I've always said nobody has as strong of a core as Daniel Cormier. If anybody can actually pick Brock up and throw him, it would be Daniel Cormier in my mind. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
I actually like Brock Lesnar behind the scenes, but I think a lot of Daniel Cormier's ability, and that came first. Who knew what was going to happen with Jon? So, you know what, Daniel Cormier needs to go get paid. I absolutely understand that. And Brock wants to come back and fight for a title and get paid, and I absolutely understand that. So, Brock Lesnar is a big man, and I know he can wrestle. So it can be very exciting, but I definitely think Daniel can crack him.
Just before we were talking, you mentioned something, and that's sort of, misinformation that's out there. And, Dana White made a few comments recently about Jon Jones. And there is sort of a long history where it comes to Dana White and Jon Jones and misinformation, saying that, he, for example, isn't going to main event a card and things like that. And he went out seemingly on a limb and said that Jon Jones isn't in shape. He's not ready to fight yet. And he also made a comment saying that also the Jackson Winkeljohn team is in turmoil. Did you see that comment, and sort of what did you make of that? What I guess would be your response for anyone thinking that the team is any kind of turmoil?
Oh, the team is not in turmoil. Jon is as tight as the team as he ever has been. Everybody on the team is there every single day. We've had one individual that's not there, but guess what? He never was there before in the past. So again, everybody believes social media, and apparently Dana White believes social media. That's all I can say about that. But we'll get Jon Jones in shape, and he'll be ready for when Dana decides who he's going to fight and when it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dana said something about 2019, and we've just sort of, I guess, ruled out DC most likely as the opponent. So if you sort of had to look around at the landscape, would you say it's Alexander Gustafsson as the potential return fight for Jon Jones? I know you've spoken to us in the past about how, you'd kind of like to see that rematch happen so Jon Jones can show people how much better he is than Alexander.
Oh yeah, well, first off, it's a competitive fight, and Jon, when he steps up, he always has a tendency to step up. Because it was such a competitive fight last time, I know he would actually train that much harder this time. And Alex is a dangerous guy. His uppercut is what scares me the most of everything that kid throws. He took Jon down in his last fight, so he's got a lot of skills. So yeah, I would like to see that fight again. I'd like to see Jon get back out there and do it even better this next time. But Jon's excited. I'm excited to train Jon for whoever he wants. I mean, how lucky am I that I get to work with who I consider the best of all time.
Yeah, and not only Jon Jones, but a slew of other incredible fighters. Obviously, Michelle Waterson, one of them, next week, UFC 229. So you'll be there. We'll be there as well. Coach, so maybe we'll run into you if we're lucky enough. Make sure, guys, to visit jacksonwink.com and follow Mike on Twitter at MMA Coach Wink. Always a pleasure, always an honor chatting to you. So thank you so much for jumping on chatting with us.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me.
This is TJ Dillashaw, UFC champ. Listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest always smells lovely because he's the face of Ralph Lauren's Polo Blue. He is the UFC's answer to James Bond, also former UFC middleweight champion and Strikeforce champion. Now set to take on Chris Weidman in a rematch at UFC 230 on November 3rd. It's going to be 4th here in Australia. Luke Rockhold, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
Doing well, boys. How's everything?
Very good, especially now that Luke Rockhold is on the program. Things are cooking. So the last time we spoke to you, Luke, you were targeting light heavyweight for your next fight, but you didn't rule out a return to 185. So tell us, how did this fight sort of come together? How did they lure you back into middleweight?
Chris Weidman at Madison Square Garden. Simple enough. It's a big fight in a big arena. Place I've always wanted to go, and perfect matchup, man. It's a very fitting situation. It's something that gets me up, gets me excited, makes me want to go back and drop that weight, I guess. There's a lot of hold. There's a hold up. There's a hold up in the division. Obviously I'm very close to DC, and I know his standing and where he's going and what's going on right now. So there's a lot of things that need to be cleared up before I make that move and run upon the light heavyweights.
What is it about Weidman specifically that gets you excited? Because I get the vibe that you mentioned before, this is a fight that gets you up, but you've already beaten him. So what is it that makes you excited about facing Weidman and beating him again?
It's Weidman at Madison Square Garden. I mean, he's an incredible fighter, man. He put away Kelvin Gastelum. People want to discredit Weidman for what he's had a couple rough fights since we encountered. But he showed up. His last fight, you're only as good as your last fight, they say, right? He showed up. He put Kelvin Gastelum away like nobody else could. So he's very relevant in the division. He is number 3 in the world, and putting him away again. Obviously, it speaks volumes. I think I can do it better than these guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess if you do get a massive win over him at Madison Square Garden, that kind of sets up another title shot possibly for Luke Rockhold over the winner of Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum. So if you do get the win over Weidman, would you be willing to stick around and get another title shot at middleweight, or is this just sort of one and done for you?
I never close a door. I always keep an open door. So we'll see. I'm going to go perform. I'm going to go handle my business, Madison Square Garden, and then we'll make decisions then. But there's a lot to be figured out with the title picture. We'll see where the guys go. Obviously, they still have to fight. They have to schedule to fight, and Robert's got to get healthy. And that thing's got to take place, and we'll see who comes to surface.
The tasty thing about this whole situation is UFC 230. It's kind of a showcase for the middleweight division. It was supposed to be Paulo Costa and Romero. That doesn't seem like it's happening. But you have yourself and Weidman. You also have Derek Brunson and Israel Adesanya. What do you think about sort of the middleweight division being on showcase? And has Israel sort of caught your eye at all? He's a guy that's being pushed very heavily by the UFC and a guy that's also sort of climbing the ranks.
Seemed to do pretty well for himself. I think this is a good test for him. It's a guy that can wrestle a little bit, and see. We'll see what Israel's all-around game comes to be. He does well on his feet, but this is a complicated world when you reach the top.
Talk a little bit about Madison Square Garden to us. What does that place mean to you? I mean, me and Casper were lucky enough. We were up there for the Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez fight, but obviously all the classic events that have taken place. When I walked in there personally, I felt a vibe from the walls. It was like walking into some kind of church for sports fans, church for people like us on the other side of the world. Whenever we talk about it, it's held in very high regard. What does it mean to you? And what do you think of when you think of it?
It got me back down to 185 pounds. I'll tell you that. Not a lot of things would have brought me back here at the moment, but I'm excited. Madison Square Garden is the biggest venue in the world. So I got the MGM down. It's the probably two biggest venues in the world, right? I won the world title against Weidman at the MGM. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put him away here at Madison Square Garden. It's gonna be an epic fight. It's gonna be the show's awesome. You got the West Coast boys coming over, and we're gonna handle business.
I seem to remember you saying coast to coast ass whoopings at one point, I think referring to Weidman. So it's interesting that it's sort of, it's coming to fruition. You have that opportunity. When you think about that first fight between you guys, what's sort of the biggest thing that you remember about it? What's something that stands out to you about it?
Myself on top of him in the third round, dropping elbows on his face.
Yeah.
That stands out the most, really. So I mean, I was seeking this fight. I thought that we could make this thing happen. We were trying to get the Madison Square Garden fight originally, and then post our first fight. So it's a fitting situation. It's time to do to end this thing. We were supposed to have that rematch after the first fight. He didn't, he thought certain ways about it, and it's time to silence everybody. There was nothing else happening but me dominating that fight, and I'm gonna go out there and prove that the spinning heel kick, whatever the fuck you guys want to talk about, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna put an end to this thing. I'm gonna put a stamp on it.
Because you tweeted out, you sort of retweeted it saying there won't be a third one. That's why, right? You want to end. You don't want it to get to a trilogy. It's going to end here, correct?
I don't want it to end. Who the fuck would want to go to the trilogy? What's the point of that?
Yeah.
I'm coming to win the fucking fight. I'm coming to put him away. I'm coming to just leave no doubt. People keep doubting me. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna show myself. Every fight's different. There's complications in fights. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna prove myself as the top middleweight in the world.
And obviously, it's a little bit of time since 2014 when you guys last fought. What do you sort of think about yourself compared to the Luke Rockhold back then? I know you've got a lot of new tricks. You've worked a lot of new moves. You've worked with a bunch of different camps. How do you sort of compare yourself to the Luke Rockhold back then?
You'll have to wait and see. There's definitely there's always new tricks. There's always new things. And, last time around with the Weidman fight, I was at a deficit. I wasn't nearly who I could be, and I've learned how to pace myself through training camps and get to the fight healthier, get to the fight more prepared, more composed, and this game is a constant learning process, and that's why you travel, you train, and you you don't limit yourself. That's the reason I move around. It's loyalty is everything to me. But martial arts is the way of martial arts is always to learn, adapt, and to seek new information, and that's what I do. I've always been loyal to my people. They're always in my corner. You always see that. But I'm always out there to learn and pull in as much information as possible. And out here with Henry and the team that have, and Greg and Jones and Kami Bronzini, the guys are very knowledgeable in the fight game, and I'm pulling every bit of information I can in this career.
So just to confirm, because I was going to say, like on your Instagram, there's a lot of pictures of you and Javier Mendez, a lot of sort of throwbacks. But you will still be with Combat Club for this one, correct? You're not going back to AKA officially or anything like that.
I mean, I'm never opposed to training with my guys, and that's what I did. It's not throwbacks. These aren't throwbacks. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing in life. And so I went back and I trained with Khabib and DC and the guys for a bit. It's good to be back and see everybody, and I'll be back. I got to fly back this week for some things, and so I'm gonna get some more training in. But I'll be back here for the most part. I'm here. Everything's good here. I got a great system with Mike Barwas and strength and conditioning. We get my body healthy, and everything's on track. And so I'm just trying to build a better machine, do what I do.
Just quickly, before we touch on Khabib, because obviously we'll ask you about him as well, but just regarding Weidman, what do you think is the biggest difference between him these days and the Weidman that you already beat back in 2014? How much of a different fighter do you think he is?
I'd have to say Weidman showed me his best fight. His last time out, he adapted. He was composed. He showed different things. It was the best fight I've seen, realistically.
Against Gastelum, right?
He rocked Gastelum probably 2 or 3 times. He had him on Queer Street. He had the kid like I've never seen. No one else has done that to him. So he dominated him. He adjusted, but I'm not Kelvin Gastelum. This is going to be different, and he'll soon remember, why he doesn't want to fucking tangle with me.
Let's talk a little bit about your AKA brother Khabib, because they did the big press conference between him and Conor McGregor this past week. Did you get a chance to watch it, and what did you think of all the craziness?
I watched a bit of it on the on my drive to practice. It is what it is. I think there's obviously somewhat of a communication barrier, but Khabib gets his point across. He's composed. You can see his demeanor. I don't know where he's at. Connor's Conor. he's selling it, man. He's on the brink of insanity, and it's awesome. But this is a different kind of fight, and we'll see what's up, man. They're both dangerous in their own realms, but I like Khabib and where he's coming from and how he can attack this fight. So I'm excited to see it.
It's funny. I was watching the press conference, thinking like, I'm sure Khabib doesn't love this moment, sort of having to engage, English being his second language. But regardless, it's gonna the work that Conor's doing now. It's gonna make him both a lot of money. How do you think him better than we do or anyone does? How do you think he took some of those things that Conor said? Mentioning Kadyrov and his people and Conor sort of really doing his research. How do you think he sort of wore all those things and did it affect him in any way?
Khabib's a pretty smooth character. He doesn't really let a lot affect him. I think you all can see that. Conor always does his homework. He always does his shit, and he's always going to be himself. So, but the fight. The man can fight. He can not only talk. He does fight, and he is precise. He is dangerous, and we all know Khabib can do his thing. He's 26-0 now. I mean, it's an unheard of thing. The guy's never lost. So. Conor's lost multiple times. Khabib is dangerous. Anybody can lose, but we'll see what happens. If Khabib gets a hold of him, it's a different world. You can't tussle with somebody who's grappled like that his whole life. I've grappled with a lot of 55-pounders in the world, and not one can give me the go that Khabib has.
Sorry to cut in there. What kind of weight does he feel like to you? Because you've guys like Josh Thompson, other lightweights. If they feel like lightweights, what does Khabib feel like? Does he feel close to a middleweight to you?
Khabib is he's up there, man. He obviously doesn't have the exact size of me as a bigger middleweight, but he's strong as an ox. He doesn't give up. The kid, he's relentless and he won't give up. I mean, I play with 55-pounders. Khabib is a real go, and there's absolutely no quitting him. He will go to the bitter end. He will go to his death. He has to. I've taken him as far as I could ever believe, and he just keeps coming. And the guy does not. he will not tap to anything. He's a true fighter.
Jesus,
he's a bit of a Terminator there. I know you mentioned that next week he said you're gonna go somewhere, so you won't be at UFC 229 because I know you were there when obviously Daniel Cormier had that massive win, and you were there in the octagon. Will you be there for Khabib's fight with McGregor, or are you obviously preparing for your big fight at MSG and won't be able to make it this time around?
I am preparing for the fight, but we have some complications, so we'll see. I don't know. I might be out there training. I'm trying to decipher what the best training situation is for me right now. So
yeah, because we'll be there, so a good training session could be having a few beers with the boys from Australia and talking about some old war stories off record, So I'm just saying, if you want to get really ready for Chris Weidman, you might have to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll drink some whiskey, right?
Of course.
Rob out there with you boys. Nah.
I
think I might have to play it safe out here in Florida. So I'm gonna go to Cali. I'm gonna get a couple days of training with AK and Khabib this weekend. But it looks like I'm gonna come back here.
I wanted to ask you also, we'll let you go in a moment, but you talking about Kelvin Gastelum before, who do you think wins between him and Robert Whittaker? How do you see that fight potentially playing out? Because that is potentially the guy that you might be facing next, whoever wins.
It's an interesting matchup. Whittaker can't. Kelvin's quick, and so it's going to be a striking match. They're both pretty good on the feet. When Kelvin breaks mentally, if you pressure him, you put it on him, and so Whittaker. I don't know, man. It's going to be a good fight. We'll see. I favor Whittaker, but Kelvin is dangerous on the feet if you play that game with him all the time. So we'll see if Whittaker can expand his game and try to implement some takedowns and different things to throw him off. Whittaker's got a kicking game too, so anything can land.
Well, finally, the most important prediction of all. What's your prediction for November 3rd? How are you beating Chris Weidman at UFC 230?
Round 2.
Round 2. So half the time as last time, correct?
Should have been done in round 3 last time.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. So round 2 for this one. There you go, guys. Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. A very enticing rematch at UFC 230 on November the 3rd because the time difference is going to be November 4th here in Australia and New Zealand, but it will be at the iconic Madison Square Garden. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Luke Rockhold. And of course, if you want to smell delicious, check out the Ralph Lauren Polo Blue range. Probably wearing some of it right now. Just quickly, anything new and exciting coming out in the world of Ralph Lauren for you, Luke?
I think I've covered the map so far. I have it all.
Everything.
I have fragrance, underwear, and shirts. So Ralph Lauren at the moment, but we got good things. I'm always working. I got a lot of stuff on in the works, but most importantly, we're putting away Chris Weidman, Madison Square Garden. That's all it is. All it is.
There you go. Thank you so much, Luke, for your time. Always appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, Luke.
Later, boys.
And there you guys go, Luke Rockhold. Super excited to see him return at Madison Square Garden, UFC 230. And, man, what a card right now. I mean, the main event's in question. People are going, will the Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier fight be put as the main event? Maybe a 165-pound title to make it worthwhile. I'll tell you what, it's getting very close to the event. And a lot of people are ruled out. I mean, we just spoke to Coach Wink, who didn't seem that... I suppose, sure that Jon Jones would be in shape and ready to go for UFC 230. So, I mean, who else is there, Cass? It's like you go through the roster, you go, apart from a GSP, which it would be very, very close for him to come back as well, there's not really that many people that can headline over Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier. But regardless, a fantastic card. And I can't wait to see Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold duke it out in Madison Square Garden. It's going to be amazing.
Just quickly, something that didn't make massive headlines this past weekend, UFC Sao Paulo. We had our very own Edu Alves covering the event for us for the very first time. Just wanted to give him a quick shout out. I say a big thank you. Very much appreciated. Him obviously be a Sao Paulo resident for going there and covering the event for us. I think he did a tremendous job. He has covered UFC events before, but this is the first time working together. It's always interesting sort of getting new people, new, correspondents who are working in other countries. There's always a whole bunch of, challenges and things to overcome, time differences, communication and things like that. And I think the man did a phenomenal job. Very, very good to work with. Communication wise, he was just very, very good. A dream to sort of to work with him, a pleasure, an ease. And here's to many more Brazilian events. So you guys can look forward to hopefully more Brazilian MMA coverage in the future, more UFC events when they come down to Brazil. So just wanted to mention that. Any other thoughts before we wrap up for this episode? Obviously, a big thank you to our guests, to Luke Rockhold just before, to Coach Mike Winkeljohn, and to Robin Black himself. To you guys for listening. Anything we're forgetting, Dennis?
No, that's it. I mean, we're packing our bags. We're getting ready. This is Submission Radio here. We're just calling you to let you know that we are going to UFC 229 lock, stock, and barrel. We're going to be all over those shuffleboards, and you just try and keep us out, people. Now, it's going to be a really, really exciting bit of a Frank Costanza moment to finish off the program. Big thank you to Musashi. Big thank you to Air Asia. Big thank you to you guys for the support over the past week when we didn't have the show. Quick reminder, jump on the YouTube, give us a subscription, follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. So much content coming your way. We're very, very excited. Follow our journey to Las Vegas and back through all the social media channels. And with that, we will see you, friends, in Las Vegas for UFC 229. We cannot wait. Just checking my passport now. Make sure it's with me. Casper, as we wrap up, apart from the Nintendo Switch, which will be blaring the Mario Kart all the way to and from America during
God about
flight.
that. Excellent.
I'm getting that bad.
It's going to make our 20-hour flight so much more enjoyable. 20 hours of Mario Kart.
There's going to be feuds. There's going to be a bit of feuding. There's, maybe some stewardesses will get involved. Maybe we'll get evicted. Who knows? It's the fun part about playing Mario Kart with your friends. But apart from that, what is one can't miss, I suppose, thing that Casper has to take with them on a long-haul flight to and back from America? What is one thing that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here. Well, not the internet porn, because that's available wherever we go. Oh man, I think my suits, my sexy. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually, you know what? Thank God we got Musashi as a sponsor, because here's the thing: I'm very much into the gym right now. I let myself go for the last few years, and I've been training. I think 11 months now. Lost 17 kilos. What is that in pounds? It's like double. So it's like, I don't know, 40 pounds, something like that. That's right. Set your faces to impressed. Now, whatever. So I'm going to be, and I need to keep my protein up. Otherwise, I'll lose my muscle, what little I have, and I'll look like Christian Bale in The Machinist. So I think I'm going to pack like a fucked up amount of protein bars so I can be eating them, because I won't be having proper meals while we're there. It's going to be Wahlburgers and all sorts of delicious shit. But I need my protein to be at 200. So yeah, a lot of bars. That's my can't miss. What about you?
Well, I was just gonna say Musashi Peanut Crunch. It's better than a Snickers. And with that, guys, we'll let you guys go. Check us out, UFC 229 Fight Week. Casper and Dennis out.